Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. You're watching NEWSROOM. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 2nd of March 2023, and these are the stories that we will be discussing in detail during the course of the show. We'll begin with the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif applauding the rescue teams that have been working diligently in Turkey as well as in Syria to help those who are in need post the earthquake, the 7.8 magnitude earthquake that hit on the 6th of February in both Turkey and Syria. Pakistan was one of the first countries that sent its troops, that sent its teams from Rescue 1122, from the army, from the other teams as well, that went and that helped those people in need. They also took out many people. There are so many stories, heartwarming stories of those who were taken out of the rubble days after the earthquake happened because of the erstwhile efforts of our very teams. Whether it be our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Saab, whether it be the Chairman NDMA, or whether it be the Chief of the Army Staff, all three have congratulated the teams for having worked so diligently 24/7 to help those in need. And it shows the friendship that Turkey, Syria and Pakistan enjoy. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, concerns what happened 33 years ago on this very day. In fact, on the 1st of March in 1990, two groups of people were killed by the Indian forces in two different areas of illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, that is in Zakura and Tengpora, because they were protesting against the brutalities of the Indian forces. But that was 1990. Today, 33 years later, the same brutalities continue in different parts of the Indian held valley without any reaction whatsoever in form of action by the world bodies. This is going to be our second story. Then we'll be discussing Shehbaz Sharif Saab, our Prime Minister, who has felicitated Bola Ahmed Tinubu on his victory as the new president of Nigeria. He is, of course, a Nigerian president-elect, and we hope that under his able guidance, both the countries, that is Nigeria and Pakistan, will further strengthen their relationship, their friendship, their collaboration and their cooperation. And finally, we will be discussing Baloch Culture Day that is being celebrated across the world and in Pakistan, of course, as well, with great zeal and fervor. Many messages have come, whether it be by the Balochistan's hierarchy or whether it be by our Prime Minister, to highlight the importance that Balochistan has for Pakistan, also the importance that Baloch culture has for Pakistan as well. It's a colorful culture, it's a beautiful culture, traditions, language, the way they dress up, their festivities. These are something that need to go on for one generation and the other and need to be highlighted to the world as well. And that is why not only in Pakistan but across the world this day is being celebrated. Let's begin with our first segment, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the dastardly earthquake that hit on the 6th of February in Turkiye, in Syria, and Pakistan being one of the first countries there on the forefront, there to help those in need. Their services have been applauded not only by the people in Turkey but also by our Prime Minister, our Chief of the Army Staff and our Chairman NDMA. More in the following report.
Turkey and Syria are grappling with unprecedented humanitarian disaster as massive earthquake instantly changed tens of thousands of lives, displaced millions and wrecked infrastructure. A magnitude 5.6 earthquake hit eastern Turkey recently, killing at least one person and wounding dozens while causing some damaged buildings to collapse. Monday's earthquake became the latest major tremor to rock southern Turkey as the region rebuilds from earlier massive earthquakes that killed more than 50,000 people across southern Turkey and northwest Syria. Pakistan search and rescue teams have participated diligently in relief and rescue operations, and a 33-member urban search and rescue team performed a 7-day operation in southeastern Adiyaman province. Chairman National Disaster Management Authority Lieutenant General Inam Haider Malik has lauded the search and rescue teams of Pakistan for their successful relief and rescue activities in earthquake-hit areas of Turkey and Syria. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif stated that despite financial constraints, Pakistan is making all-out efforts to provide relief to earthquake-affected people of Turkey and Syria. NDMA has already sent nearly 7,000 winterized tents and more than 33,000 blankets to Turkey through air and road routes. An additional 50,000 tents will soon be dispatched to Turkey. Reaffirming Islamabad's commitment to supporting the earthquake victims, a Pakistan Navy ship carrying 1,000 tons of relief goods for the February 6th earthquake victims departed for Turkey.
Dr. Rizwan Naseer, who's the Commander, Pakistan Rescue 1122 team, joins us online. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, first of all, congratulations on all the efforts that you and your team made in Turkey and Syria to help all those who are in need. You have made Pakistan proud, you have made us proud, and we would like to congratulate you from the part of Pakistan Television and PTV World. Now I'd like to understand, you who were there and you had a lot of first-hand information about what went down in Syria and in Turkey. What kind of information would you like? What was your first impression when you reached Turkey?
I think the level of the devastation that we saw over there was really unbelievable. The moment this earthquake actually took place, since we had the UN certification, which is the United Nations NEWSROOM certification, we're the first team in South Asia to get the UN certification. Unlike the 2005 earthquake when we had a state of helplessness, today we've been able to build our own capacity. We've got several of the rescue teams, and we are the first team to get UN certification, and we are subsequently doing more and more teams are being now certified so that we meet those standards. So as a result of that, we were ready. So the moment we heard about it, we put our team on alert. As soon as the Prime Minister said that we need to mobilize the NDMA, PIA immediately got us on board, and we were there on the very next day. I think what we saw over there was an unbelievable level of devastation. Can you imagine that there was no water, there was no electricity, and on every street, there were about at least 1 to 2 buildings had collapsed, and the rest of the buildings which were standing either were like, in a tilted position, or they had so many cracks that nobody could live over there. So everybody had actually left the city. Then, apart from those who had just left behind, were only those people who had either somebody inside the building or they were waiting to get their loved ones out so that they could be provided with decent burial or something like that. So our team basically worked in Adıyaman, and then subsequently they were deployed in Hatay. Now, in this process, because of the techniques and others that we did use, about 15 of the people were saved alive. And then we carried out an operation in about 146 buildings. We carried out the search and rescue operation, and we identified about 247 bodies in this entire process and helped in the extrication process. So the level of the devastation, I don't even have words to explain what actually took place. On almost 4 of the cities of Turkey are almost all gone. 6 of the cities are also affected, but the 4 cities I've heard, 2 at least what we saw, and the other cities, the level of devastation is really unbelievable. All the areas that they had built and all these buildings, which are normally 5 to 6 story flats, were badly affected, and I think they will have to rebuild the entire cities and get the people back in. So I think it will be a huge challenge for Turkey.
Dr. Rizwan, you talked about the devastation. You also said that you had been, the Rescue 1122 has been certified, one of the first teams in this region to have been certified as well. When you arrived on the scene, when you saw the amount of devastation, how did you divide the work and how much were you working per day? Was it a 24/7 job that you and your team were undergoing? Were you sleeping in shifts? How did you undergo, and did you divide the work that, X number of people will be going under the rubble to look for people, X number of people will be going helping those in the buildings, and X number will be helping those who need other kinds of aid? How did you divide and help those in need?
You see, the process is when you go to the recertification, it's like a 3 years full-fledged training program where number of external people from all over the world come and assess you, and then finally you undergo a full classification process, which is a 3 days exercise. So that actually trains you for all of that stuff. And it's not just disaster tourism. They say that the teams have to be trained and equipped so that when they come over there, they can effectively help and not be a liability for the country. So when we did respond, so immediately we divided into 3 groups. The initial effort was immediately to locate as many persons alive. So the very next day when we were there, we arrived at the governor's office of Adıyaman. And this also building had been affected and it had been evacuated, but we had to, take one of the wings of the building. So they knew that we were very near to the governor's office. So virtually everybody was coming to us, although there were many other international teams that came subsequently. But since we were right next to where the entire base of the operation was taking place, so everybody was coming in, and we got out several of the people alive in the from the very start. We were able to locate several people And the next day we got somebody out, then another family of 3 persons. I remember after 80 hours, we got a young boy out about 15 years old. And there were many other stories that, where we had these families and we were able to get them out. So, and with the life locator, the word spread. So everybody was coming to us. And so we had to divide into shifts and help in the search operation. So with the life locator device, we were able to get all of these people, we were able to identify them, and we were able to locate 15 people alive in different buildings. And then several of them obviously, unfortunately, had already died. But 15 people we were able to get out alive, and then locating about 247 dead bodies. So that was huge, and carrying out a search operation in about 146 buildings. So that was not a small task. So all the teams were working in different shifts, so that we had to carry out an operation, because once you identified somebody alive and you were in communication with them, you couldn't leave them unattended. So as soon as
how does the life locator device, how does the life locator device work, Dr. Rizwan?
Yeah, so I'll just explain. So the moment that anybody got exhausted, they would pull out and the other team would come in. So we had to carry out the operation. With the life locator device, you've got specific sensors. You've got devices where you can have seismic or ultrasonic devices, and others, multiple devices that we have, where we can actually locate even minor, if somebody is tapping or somebody's. So we are able to pick all of those things through those specific devices. And then we can also triangulate and specify exactly where you've got a person who's buried. Obviously, the challenge remains where you've got lots and lots of concrete. You need to look at void spaces from where you can actually put those devices and identify where somebody would be most likely be. So, wherever somebody had suspected that, I've had some communication, probably that person is alive. So we had the challenge of locating that person. Imagine a 6-story building coming down, and you've got multiple beams which are separating it. So you have to find some passage from some area from one of the beams, and if you cut it, if it all further collapses, obviously then you're at risk. So imagine the people who were waiting for their loved ones were sitting outside in -1 temperature. They had to put on, fire, because they couldn't be under any rubble. So we had to be with them. So we didn't.
But
sleep.
once you take the people out of the rubble, Dr. Rizwan, once you take the people out of the rubble, they need first aid, they need food, a lot of them need water, a lot of them need reassurance. So do you have, did you bring all of that with you from Pakistan, the water, the food, some kind of shelter to warm them up instantly, and some team members who could also reassure them psychologically?
Yes. When the composition of the team includes, obviously, you've got these rescue teams which are there. And apart from the rescue teams, you've got the specialized search and rescue teams. And apart from the search and rescue teams, you've got a medical team, and then the planning team, logistics. So all of them have all of this equipment. So you carry a medical kit. Then apart from that, I think the Turkish own some of the ambulances and medical units had responded. What they didn't have, because of the number of buildings was huge, were the search and rescue team. So that was something which they really wanted. Second or third day, we did start having food coming in, being brought in by the different Turkish people that mobilized, and they started coming in. But the search and rescue teams obviously were required internationally, because the magnitude was huge and many cities have been affected. And what they will require now in the coming years, because everybody had to leave the city. Can you imagine when we landed, everybody at the airport, and they had come onto the runway because they wanted to get out of the city. It was not safe for them to be there. So you can imagine how big the scale was. So I think it was huge. So this was something which was where our teams had the equipment. The medical team was also there. We were even ready to, we had to carry out 1 or 2 amputations, but thank God we were able to save them at the last stage and managed to get them out without cutting the limbs. But all of these things were very difficult, and obviously you have to carry out these operations in a very, very narrow tunnels, and to get them out.
You say you carried out these operations in a very narrow tunnel. The fact also remains that you have seen a lot of devastation firsthand there, and you talked about that in the very beginning of our interaction. But there were so many aftershocks, those hundreds and thousands of aftershocks that happened.
Yeah.
How did you manage to sustain yourself and your team also during all those aftershocks? And then the other earthquakes that also emanated afterwards. We had another earthquake, then recently there has been another earthquake that has happened in Turkey as well. How, when your team was there, how did you manage to how should I say, survive psychologically the whole impact of these aftershocks?
You have reminded me of a nightmare. You know, we were without water almost for 7-8 days. We were without electricity. But the worst part was when you were just, were taking a 1-hour nap, and suddenly there would be jolts, and you would run out to just save yourself and be in a safe place. So nobody could even relax, or nobody could even sleep properly, because the moment any minor jolt would come in, it would be like, it was a nightmare for everybody. Imagine for us, the people who were there, who had actually gone through this devastation, did come inside the building. So
all right. So, of course, we have with us Dr. Rizwan Naseer, Commander, Pakistan Rescue 1122 team, talking to us and discussing the first-hand information as far as what he saw, what his team saw. Dr. Rizwan, yes, you were saying. You were talking about
yes.
The aftershocks
So
and what you saw and how you managed, you and your team managed during these aftershocks.
So you can imagine, as a result of the fear of the aftershocks, nobody was ready to go under any structure. So they are willing to sit in -1 temperature with the fire outside, even at night, but not to go under a structure. And even if you were in a structure like in the governor's building, which had many cracks, the moment any shocks would come in, people would go, and our teams, right in the middle of, even if they're taking an hour's nap, so we had to rush out. So it was just like a nightmare. And even I remember when the team, which was deployed subsequently in Hatay, was coming back from Hatay, the president of Turkey met the team and said, we are demobilizing the teams now. The search and rescue operation has come to a close. But the moment they were coming back on the bus, there was a 6.4 magnitude, again an earthquake took place. And right from there, the bus had to turn back, and we had to go back to Hatay. So you can imagine what the process had been and how we went through this. And it was a nightmare, not just for us, but also for the people who were so afraid that they were willing to be outside by lighting a fire, but not to go under any structure. So in this kind of a situation, the Pakistan team, and the way we had the location where we were right next to the governor's office, and we had located and gotten out about 15 people out alive, the reputation established. So everybody was coming to us, please, the Pakistan team, you bring your life locator, we don't trust others. So, that rapport had been established. And then when we gave out tents to them and some of the meals, the expression was that chap, I can't forget his feelings when he started kissing the Pakistan flag. And he said, the way you people came when the Khilafat movement took place, and your, families, your ladies sold the gold to come and help us, we can never forget this moment. And he literally started crying and started kissing the Pakistan flag. Those moments of we can never forget. So it was something, the level of devastation, the people, how they were, the kind of conditions which they were, and we had to work, and the teams had to work, and the people were there, how they had to leave suddenly one night. This earthquake takes place in the morning, and then they have to leave the entire cities. When they'll be able to come back, just even about thinking about it just gives us nightmare. The other day I was in a building and there was a slight shake. I rushed out even over here. So we're just trying to get back to the normal routine. But having spent time over there in that devastation, obviously it takes time before we can mentally ourselves, as well as the others we were helping. We were counseling them while somebody was inside, and we were carrying out to 10 to 12 hours of operation of getting that person out. We were constantly talking to them. We were trying to provide them with some water. We had to put in IV lines, all that kind of thing, just to keep them motivated. We'll be getting to you shortly. Don't worry. We're just cutting this concrete and we're cutting this beam, and so we'll be with you, in some time. And so those kind of feelings are very hard to explain and express. I think I don't have words to, explain what we've actually seen over there and the level of devastation.
All right. Dr. Rizwan, I'd also like to understand how long did you stay in Turkey? And now that you're back, are you going to be recalled at any point of time if the Turkish government needs the services of Rescue 1122?
Yeah, we are always ready to respond, but the search and rescue operation is actually you save maximum lives within the first 24, then 48, and then 72 hours, and in 5 days. Then there is a period of life in Hatay when in Haiti when the incident took place. So they extended the period of life to about 10 days because somebody was trapped in a supermarket where he had the food supplies in abundance. So they were able to get that person alive. But then maximum of the lives are saved in the 5 days. But we carried out the operation till the 22nd, till the president first in Yemen and then in Hatay, and till the president of Turkiye came over and he specifically thanked the teams, and then the teams were demobilized finally and they got back on the 22nd. So that was until that time they were needed. They finally closed the search and rescue operation and all the machinery had come in to clear the rubble. So they had started clearing the rubble with all the excavators and everything else. So they had asked the search and rescue teams to leave by that time. So all the teams were asked to demobilize and leave. Now they're undergoing a relief and rehabilitation process where I think they would really need a lot of shelters, winterized shelters, because I don't know for how long these people who have been totally left the city, they will have to be in those areas finally until the time that their cities are rehabilitated and they can move back to their cities. So
Dr. Rizwan, last question. You've been there 24/7, so many days with your team. You helped so many people in need that, as you yourself said, that you were the people of first choice, the team of first choice. Whenever somebody was in need, the Turkish used to come to you, that we have confidence, we trust the Pakistani team. Now that you're back, you have been applauded and appreciated by our Prime Minister, by Chairman NDMA, by the Chief of the Army Staff, and then there is a recognition that the Turkish people gave you at the airport when you were leaving as well. A huge round of applause. Has all of that reinforced the friendship, the camaraderie that exists between both our brotherly countries, that is Turkey and Pakistan?
There's no doubt about that. The level and the deep-seated relationship between Pakistan and Turkey, there are no words for it. I think the way they came forward when the 2005 earthquake took place in Pakistan, and we had a state of helplessness at that time, and Turkey was one of the first teams, and then they built a lot of things. I've also served as the Secretary General for the Red Cross Pakistan, so I remember that they even built up a full-fledged DMLC building in our Red Cross office, and the way they contributed to building this, then building the hospitals and whatever they could do. So I'm so glad that today Pakistan has the capacity to be able to respond to that, and the way the Prime Minister has acknowledged the team and committed that I think despite
50,000 tents are going to be sent again to Turkey.
Yes, whatever.
All right. Thank you so very much, Dr. Rizwan Naseer, Commander, Pakistan Rescue 1122 team, to have joined us and to have given us first-hand information of what you encountered when you were in Turkey, and how you and your team were there for the people in need in Turkey, and how that has also reinforced our friendship, our collaboration, and the trust that the Turkish people have in their Pakistani brethren. Let's come to our next segment, and that concerns 33 years back on the 1st of March 1990. Around 50 people were mercilessly killed in Zakura and Tengpora when they were protesting outside the United Nations office. Those brutalities continue 33 years after as well. Has there anything has there been any change as far as those brutalities are concerned? I don't think so. More in the following report.
On March 1st, 1990, Indian security forces committed twin massacres in Zakura and Tengpora bypass in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir that left 26 and 21 people dead respectively. In Zakura, the Indian army killed 26 people by opening fire on peaceful protesters while they were heading towards the office of United Nations Military Observer Group for India and Pakistan to submit a memorandum seeking resolution to Kashmir dispute. The families of Kashmiris killed in Zakura and Tengpora massacres in 1990 by the Indian forces forces still await justice after 33 years, India continues to ignore their repeated calls for taking the culprits to task. Likewise, the Indian Army targeted 2 buses near Tengpora bypass, killing 21 unarmed Kashmiris, including 5 women. In 1994, massacres happened in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, most of them in Srinagar, targeting the Kashmiri Muslims. The first massacre occurred on January 21, 1990 at the Gaukadal Bridge, in which over 50 Kashmiri Muslim demonstrators were gunned down by Central Reserve Police Force personnel. Second incident happened in Handawara on January 25, 1990, in which at least 9 civilians were killed. The Hawal massacre of May 21, 1990 happened when the funeral procession of the Mirwais of Kashmir, Maulvi Farooq, was fired upon by paramilitary troops, killing over 45 mourners. Brutalities against helpless Kashmiris had reached such a level that even the world bodies and international communities were forced to take notice.
Altaf Hussain Wani Saab, who is a noted Kashmiri reader, joins us in the studios. Wani Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Wani Saab, 33 years have passed, 33 years and 1 day to be very precise, that these incidents happened in 2 different areas of the IIO-JK region. 33 years later, the same brutalities continue. We see the same amount of people who are killed, who are abducted, women who are raped, children who are left orphanless, people who are jailed, the Kashmiri leaders who are either jailed or their voices muted. Has the world kind of lost its resolve to help people, especially in the case of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir?
First of all, it's true that 33 years have passed and nothing has happened yet, and the brutalities continue in occupied Kashmir. It was not the first incident. Before it, many incidents.
Yes, and the year 1990 is really reputed for that.
The January is called the month of massacres in Kashmir, be it Handwara massacre, be it Kupwara massacre, be it Gaukadal massacre, and other massacres that took place. And in the report, most of the massacres we were told that these massacres took place in Kashmir. And these massacres continue till date. Not less than 19 massacres of all kinds took place in Indian occupied Kashmir from 90s till date. And it is continuing as yet. It's a kind of the brutality. It has changed its modes off and on. In 90s, we could see the large gatherings being fired upon indiscriminately by the Indian forces, and then people killed, and nothing happened. Inquiries held and all that, but none of the perpetrators has been brought to justice by the Indian forces, because they invoke such laws that provide blanket impunity to the Indian forces to kill anybody, to maim anybody, to break in anybody's house, to keep anybody in jail. So that happened in 90s, and then also in 90s there was another epidemic, that was epidemic of enforced disappearance. That's a huge massacre, in a way genocide of Kashmiris. Over 10,000 innocents of Kashmir who were taken out from their homes, and they never returned back. Their loved ones are still waiting for them. They don't know whether they are dead or they are alive.
And a specific term which we use for their wives as well.
Yeah, there's that. Then a new term was coined, that half widows and half wives in Kashmir. That's also a seller on the face of the international community, on the faces of those who champion the human rights around the globe.
But you know, when you talk of championing human rights, Altaf Wani Saab, the fact remains that in these 33 years, have you seen these champions of human rights do the needful for the people in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir?
See, I have always been telling you that there are 2 kinds of champions of human rights. One is the non-governmental organizations around the globe. The other is the international community, which we call the political governments around the globe. As far as the human rights organizations are concerned, they can report these things. They have reported these things. They have disseminated that information around the globe. They have done it time and again. When we talk of Tengpora massacre, Zakura massacre, Amnesty International at that time, and even the Human Rights Watch came with a report even at that time, calling for the investigation in these massacres and calling to bring the perpetrators to justice. But nothing happened, because as I told you, the government of India, even different governments which came into the power of India, today we have a government which is not even ready to talk to anybody on these issues, which is a Hindutva regime which is backed by RSS. Their agenda is totally different. But even the other governments which were in in India, or those who
The
were
policy
in
towards
occupied
IIOJK
Kashmir,
remained more or less the same.
policy remained the same at each and every time. So there was no justice was provided to the people of Kashmir. We have talked a lot about the rape cases happening in Kashmir. About more than 11,000 women have faced the rape in Kashmir, the sexual assaults in Kashmir, but no one got justice because of this. This is happening in Kashmir, and unfortunately, even the United States, two reports which came out, they spoke of these rape cases, they spoke of these enforced disappearances, they spoke of these massacres that took place in Kashmir. But Indian government did not do any redressal to it. Even the United Nations Special Rapporteurs time and again wrote to the government of India on these issues. Even I will recall it that it's from 1994, the Special Rapporteur on the torture has been telling the government of India, let me go to the Indian occupied Kashmir in India to have a state visit, but he's not allowed to go because India has a lot to keep in awareness, not to show the world what they're actually doing. At present, when we were about to commemorate the massacre of Zakura and Tengpora, we received one more shocker. A boy who was kidnapped from his home on 15th of December
Abdul
by
Rashid
the Indian
Dar.
forces of the Rashid Dar of Tengpora. Tengpora is a famous village for this unfortunate term that gang rape took place in Tengpora in February 23rd in 1991. So the body was recovered after 75 days, and that body is totally decomposed, and that could not be identified.
Exactly, and the Indian forces had a totally different version to say as to how he escaped.
Because he was taken from his house. It was not that he missed somewhere. He was taken from his house. Police was with them, and army 14th RR Rashtriya Rifles they were with. They took him, and the next day they said he is not with us. He ran away. All that. How can a person, as an unarmed person who was standing at his home by the Indian forces, who ran away from their custody? This is a custodial killing, and this sent a new shock wave to the people of Kashmir. But Rashid's family was in a way lucky to have at least the body of the Rashid.
There are so many who have not even gotten the
dead bodies. There are 10,000 people, more than 10,000 people in Kashmir who are still waiting for those dead bodies. They don't have that. And in recent times, the Indian government took the agencies, Indian police took the dead bodies of the boys who were killed by them at different places, then buried them in far-flung areas, and their parents don't know where they have been buried. They snatched the right to do the last burial of any
last
person,
rites
which is
of
the
any
last
person.
right of people. They snatched that right too. So talking of the India, that will India do anything? We have seen that Indian government has become so arrogant because of this 33 years which the international community failed to make India accountable of these crimes against humanity. That is why she became so arrogant. Today they have started the evacuation in a program, so-called program, land evacuation, encroachment drive in Kashmir. And by that way, they are taking the lands of the people. They are demolishing their houses, which have been owned by them for years, and these lands were given to them by the government from time to time through different legislative processes. It was not that they have occupied those lands. So what is the Indian agenda at the time, which we see from August 5th onwards? On one hand, they wanted to change the demography of the state by giving the domicile certificates to the non-governments, and then in the garb of development, what they sell at that time, and they are about to hold G20 meetings in Kashmir. It's unfortunate they are selling the mantra of normalcy outside, but the people outside should know what they are actually doing. They have demolished the houses of the people. They are taking away the lands
How
of the
can we
people.
also not forget the Delimitation Commission's report and the whole consequences?
That is the mechanization, this political mechanization, and the warfare they did against the people of Kashmir by disempowering the Muslims of Indian occupied Kashmir. They have been doing, and on the top of it, the people don't have a right to speak against it. Nobody can speak, nobody can write. If anybody writes anything on it, he is put behind the bars. Yesterday I was compiling a report on the freedom of press, offline and online in occupied Kashmir. I found nearly 3 dozen the journalists who are the proper journalists who have been tortured, who have been summoned to the police station, against whom the UAPA has been invoked against them. So how can people write against it? Just we can't count those citizen journalists who are using the social media. They are not allowed to, they have been they are under scanner and they are caught up and put behind the bars. So no, Kashmiri cannot even speak against.
And you know the armed forces are there who have been given the powers under the special act on which they can do whatever they want without any justification.
They have the state agency that's called the NIA, National Investigation Agency of India, that has been another arm twisting body of by the Indian government. On each and every day in the Indian newspapers, in the Srinagar, the Valley newspapers, you can only see the NIA raids at different places. And today I was going through a news item that some 9 boys who have whose houses have been taken away, properties have been taken away in occupied Kashmir, and they have been declared terrorists under the UAPA because they are a refugee. They have crossed over because of the Indian atrocities. They are living in refugee camps in AJK, but they have been declared as terrorists by the Indian government. It is to deny the right to return to the Kashmiri refugees of Indian occupied Kashmir, that they cannot return to their homes. Similarly, today one house of the Mushtaq Zargar is one of the freedom fighters. His house has been sealed by the Indian forces. It is not his house. It is his family house. It has been owned by his father, by his grandfather. Decades. He has not built that house because when he left the home, he was not in a position to construct a house to have a property. This is their family house, but that house has been seized. What does it mean? That they don't want anybody, anywhere in the world, to speak against these crimes, to speak against these atrocities, to speak against this violations which Indian government is doing online, offline.
So this is going to go on and on. In your point of view, Vani Sahab, this is something that has been going on and will continue to go on.
It is continuing to go on, and there is no stop on the part of the government of India, the leadership of the Indian government, the top leaders of the Indian government, and on the top of it, the military leadership in government. Their tune, you see, you have been witnessing that is an aggressive tune against the people of Kashmir. They want to silence the people of Kashmir by all means. They want to change the demography of Kashmir by all means. They want to have a normalcy of graveyard, silence of graveyard in Indian occupied Kashmir, and to showcase to the international world that there is total normalcy in Kashmir. You can come to Kashmir, you can visit Kashmir. It's normal. We have solved it.
And how can it be normal? Despite and in addition to the human rights abuses, there's also the economic crisis that the
economic crisis which have been now. They have imposed the property taxes on the people of Kashmir, that each and everybody will have they will have to pay the property tax. Now you see, from Jammu to the Kashmir Valley, everywhere people are speaking against these acts of the government of India. Yesterday, when Rashid Dar's dead body was brought to his ancestor home, you could see those visuals, how the people, men, women and children came out and they spoke against these atrocities. They raised slogans against it. But the government of India, I'm sure that they might have taken the videos of all that, and those people who are addressing those gatherings, who are raising the slogans, tomorrow we will come to know that they are behind the bars.
All right. Last question, Vani Sahab. The Grand Mufti in illegally held valley, Mufti Naseer Islam, says that the regime is pushing in the Indian held valley to the 1990s like situation. Do you foresee that?
Of course. You see, the way the Indian government has been, I have been telling in this show also, in past also, the way the Indian government is tackling the situation, the way the Indian forces are tackling the situation, they have left no room for any peaceful protest for the people of Indian occupied Kashmir. Any peaceful resent is being dealt with the brute force. and they are making such policies, such laws, such mechanization is done that nobody can speak. So what is left with the younger generation of people of Kashmir? They find themselves in a catch-22 position. They are being killed without any retaliation. They don't anything, but they are branded as terrorists and killed. They are taken away from their homes and killed. When we will see the situation like the Rashid Dar faced, what will be the net result, net reaction of the younger generation of people of Kashmir? Then the younger generation of people of Kashmir have nothing except to resort to the violence. They will themselves resort to the violence, and when there will be a violence on the part of the people of Kashmir. So far, the leadership, all the leadership has been incarcerated. They are behind the bars. Against them, they have charges. The same terrorism acts have been invoked against them. So there is no space for any political dissent. When you create such an atmosphere, then there is only way left for the people that they will pay in the same coin to the Indian government. It is the leadership, it is again, time and again.
They are leaving them with no other option. They are, as you said.
We go to the United Nations, we go to the international world, we will have a peaceful resolution of this. So you should not do this, you should not that. But at the end of the day, when people will find themselves in such a situation, it will be a 90s-like situation.
Finally, one phrase answer to this: the people, the victims, the families of the victims of Zakura, Tengpora, and so many other such tragedies, will they ever find solace? Will they ever find justice?
So under the circumstances, the way the Indian government is not being challenged by the international community on these fronts, but I could see the international human rights watchdogs have been writing on it, and there will be a time that international conscience will awaken. It will have to awaken to this and make India accountable of all these crimes which she has done so far in occupied Kashmir.
Thank you very much, Altaf Hussain Wani Saab, and to have come all the way to the studios to talk to us about this tragedy that happened 33 years and 1 day before in Zakura and Tengpora. But this is just one of the countless tragedies that the people in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir have witnessed and continue to witness. All we can do, all we can hope is that some kind of normalcy returns, and that the important organizations and the countries that are important to the world bodies and that are deciding factors do the needful. Yes.
Just 1 minute of yours. At this forum, I would like to request the G20 countries who as India is chair of that, they are going to India to have a summit over there. I will request them that Indian occupied Kashmir is a disputed territory. They should take the cognizance of this, that India should not hold any session of the G20 in Indian occupied Kashmir. So those people who are the champions of human rights around the globe, be that United States, be that United Kingdom, be that France and others, I request all of them that no human rights violator such as India or Modi should be allowed to hold a summit like this in Indian occupied Kashmir under the barrels of these guns.
Point taken, and I hope that the G20 leaders are listening because of course the summit is happening in India as we speak. So of course it's the responsibility of the G20 countries. The ball is in your courts. Let's come to our last stories, and the first of course is Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who has felicitated Bola Tinubu on his victory in the Nigerian presidential elections. We have cordial good relations with Nigeria, and we hope that under the leadership of Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Nigeria will not only become more prosperous but also have strong relations with other countries including Pakistan. We wish Mr. Tinubu all the very best. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, today is the Baloch Culture Day. So of course, Balochistan, a very prosperous and beautiful province of Pakistan, something that we need to be proud of, a region that we need to be proud of, has a beautiful culture of its own, its traditions, its festivities, and this is something that is being celebrated today not only in Pakistan but across the world. Messages have come from our Premier Shehbaz Sharif Saab, from other Baloch leaders as well, and from other world leaders as well. We wish our Baloch brothers all the very best on this auspicious day, and keep the Pakistan flag high, keep the Balochis traditions flying high, and of course the colors that you can see of all the turbans that they are wearing as well. There are so many different things that Pakistan has to offer as far as its traditions and festivities is concerned. You need to decipher them, you need to understand what Pakistan is all about. It's rich with culture and traditions. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you tomorrow with new stories and segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Allah Hafiz.